1976, England captain Tony Greig bragged that his team would make the touring West Indians grovel. By the end of the series, it was the English team that was in need of mercy.
Coming away mercifully through the offside.
Leading the assault was Vivian Richards.
Short, that's it. What a tremendous performance is by Vivian Richards. 200 in a test match on this ground, following in the footsteps of the great Frank Worrell and Basil Dutcher before him.
The 76 West Indies-England series began with the headlines of all revolving around Greig's grovel comment. And Richards came out on the very first day of the series and batted most of the day, batting from number 3, and finished the day at 143 not out, and went on the next day to score 232. And you could not have imagined a more effective way to push Tony Greig's words back straight down his throat.
A superb exhibition by this brilliant West Indian cricketer, Vivian Richards.
Vivian Richards will always be remembered, certainly in England, for the effect he had on the 1976 series. He hit 2 double centuries in that series in 1976, 232 at Trent Bridge in the first test of the summer, which really set the standard for the rest of the series, and also 291 at the Oval.
You would reasonably argue that he was at his most destructive, that his eye was at its sharpest through that summer in 76. The innings of 291 was unforgettable. There were times when, of all the players I've ever seen, Viv would be the most unbowlable to.
Well, that's 4 more. That is a super shot.
Richards had an extraordinary eye and reflexes. He was able to dominate and intimidate opposition attacks.
Vivian Richards just blasting away, showing utter arrogance.
I remember Imran Khan saying that Viv, he said, was the most intimidating batsman for a bowler. You know, he said the way he walked out onto the ground, he said he just had that aura about him, and he said he was the only batsman I felt that could intimidate.
Very few batsmen make as big a statement with their presence as Viv Richards. It looked like he had tennis balls under each arm as he walked out, you know, and he was always sweating when he came to the crease. But it was like, this is my stage. He might come to the wicket, it might be 3 for 30, but sorry, the rules are about to change. I'm Viv. And that was the way he approached every innings that he played.
Well, can you believe it? The West Indies poised on the brink of disaster. And what an arrogant shot played by the man. It bounced back into the field of play 20 metres.
I don't think I've ever seen a batsman who went out to the middle with that kind of swagger. And you almost could sense that the bowlers and the opposition were shaking in their boots when he came out. He had that presence.
Lovely shot by Richards. Picked it up beautifully.
And he was a strong man, hit the ball like thunder. Remarkable eyesight.
He picked it up so early, he picked the line and the length up so early, he automatically seemed to be in a position to play that attacking shot. I think that's the hallmark of the very greatest.
If I were picking a World 11 of all the great players that I've seen, and in my time as a player and as an umpire, Viv would be my number 3 batsman without a shadow of doubt. He used to murder attacks. Once he got in, he'd murder attacks. Tremendous, wonderful eye. Great player, man. Great player. I mean, he got to be one of the greatest that's ever lived, Viv. Tremendous.
I don't think I've seen too many blokes better at taking on exceptionally good quick bowlers and doing a lot of damage. Viv, you'd almost have to rank him number 1 in that regard. He was a very destructive force in the West Indies side.
Arrogantly swatted away behind square for 4 runs.
What?
In 1969, the 17-year-old Richards was already a star attraction on his home island of Antigua. In 1972, Richards was playing first-class cricket for the Leeward Islands.
He had a big influence on the smaller islands of the West Indies, who were outside the mainstream up until 1966. Viv started his first-class career in 1972, so it was only 6 years after the Windwards, who were St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Dominica, Grenada, and his own home island, Antigua, St. Kitts, the small islands, were brought in. And all of a sudden they had this star. So that made the small islands lift everyone there, gave them a tremendous boost of confidence.
In 1973, he was playing county cricket for Somerset alongside Ian Botham.
Somerset meant everything to him. That was his first big chance, as it was with me. So it meant a great deal to him, and we learned a lot. We learned about life together. We learned, we didn't learn much about cooking, but we learned about most things together. And I was privileged and lucky enough to grow, and the two of us grew together. But to grow up, it was absolutely magnificent to watch his career going, and I would take as much interest in what he was doing as he would in what I was doing.
The first time I played against Viv Richards was he was playing for the President's 11 at Montego Bay in 1973. Jeff Hammond was bowling, and he whacked him down the ground 3 times in a row. Bang, 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 just straight back over the bowler's head. And then he edged the 4th one and he was out caught behind. And we all gathered around to say well bowled to Jeff Hammond and so on, you see. And I remember Jeff Hammond looking at this guy as he left the field, and he said, that'll teach the so-and-so. He said, you can't keep playing like that. That's bloody ridiculous batting, And I didn't think much more about it at the time, but when I saw a couple of Viv's innings later on, we were on the receiving end, I thought back to those words of Jeff Hammond. I thought, hey, Bomber, you can play like that and get away with it.
3 future great West Indian players made their Test debuts in 1974. Andy Roberts, Gordon Greenwich and Viv Richards.
He did come along at a time when the West Indies were all-powerful. The 1974-75 tour of India was his first, was Gordon Greenwich's first for Clive Lloyd as captain, and they all gelled together, of course, and felt confident. They were all confident. They felt they could do anything, and I think Viv's whole attitude rubbed off on the rest of the team.
In his first Test match against India, Richards struggled with the fast leg spin of Bhagwat Chandrasekhar. He made amends in the second, scoring 192 not out. In the inaugural World Cup final at Lord's in 1975, Viv Richards failed with the bat, but he still had a profound effect on the game.
Oh, and there must be a run out here. He must be out.
In an era when fielding standards reached new heights, Richards was supreme.
In that 1975 World Cup final, Australia v West Indies, he turned the match with his brilliant fielding. I mean, I think it was only his first, I think it could have been only his second match for the West Indies. And his fielding in the mid-wicket areas and the cover point areas was outstanding. And he ran 3 of the Australian batsmen out when they were really set and they were going. And I think if he hadn't run them out, I think Australia would have won it.
And very close as he's running out.
It's just the speed with which he moved in comparison with what we had in those days. I mean, I guess now with modern one-day cricket, he probably wouldn't have been that remarkable. But it was just, the man for the occasion. Here it was the final. West Indies got the better of it, and probably one of the key things was these 3 key run-outs.
The 1975-76 tour of Australia began badly for Richards. He failed to reach 50 in any of the first 4 tests. His place in the team was in jeopardy. Opening the batting for the last 2 tests and facing Lilly and Thompson, Richards made 30, 101, 50 and 98. His ability to take on new ball bowlers was recognised and his place assured.
You didn't find too many batsmen in those days who were actually coming out and going for Lilly and Thompson. But he was going after him. And I remember standing at first slip, and I said to Rodney Marsh, I said, when these so-and-sos wake up to this bloke and realise that he should be batting at number 3, I said, this bloke will be a magnificent number 3.
Viv Richards, all I'm grateful for is that I didn't have to bowl to him. The contempt he sort of gave to bowlers, like everybody's walking out with helmets on and armour over the arm, and rib cage protection. Viv used to walk out and you knew full well that you could see the brown skin through the shirt. You could see the cap at a rakish angle on the head and say, well, come on, you serve it up to me, mate, I'm ready for you.
Short ball straight away, and Richards confidently smashes it to the boundary. Oh, is he looking dangerous?
After a successful tour against India at home, Richards arrived in England in 1976, confident in his ability to dominate any attack. Despite missing the second test with influenza, Richards made 829 runs at an average of more than 118, as the West Indies completed a dominant 3-0 series win. Richards made 1,710 test runs in 1976, still a record for any batsman in a calendar year. In an era of great fast bowlers, he was the batsman the quick men feared most of all.
He was in a class by himself, Viv Richards. I think that he could well be termed the Muhammad Ali of cricket, in the sense that he took on everyone. And he didn't just do it by the bat. He said it. He talked. And, you know, his bravado was rubbed off on many of the players that played with him. I was very lucky to be in a team like that, and just learning from people like Viv.
Well, he's the best batsman I ever bowled at. I think that goes without question, really. He had this aura about him. He dominated sides. He dominated bowling attacks. He had a swagger, but it was a believable swagger. There was no arrogance or no real arrogance to it. He was just an unbelievable presence, and certainly the hardest man I've ever had to bowl at in county or test match cricket, because you just didn't know where you were going to bowl the ball.
Richards has hit 5 boundaries from 9 balls.
One of the fiercest competitors, really. I think a lot of opponents approached Viv from the wrong way. I think if you made Viv feel comfortable, you had a better chance. But the moment you confronted him, you're on the losing side. A tremendous batsman and, of course, a great competitor.
Rodney Hogg came up, ball over bounce, and hit him in his jaw. No helmet. Viv Richards never wore a helmet. Hit him right in the jaw. Rodney Hogg was no slow coach. And Viv just massaged the jaw a bit and his usual exercise of... And then the very next ball, Rodney Hogg thought to himself, well, I'm going to bounce him again. Well, the next ball went for 6. And he went on, I think he got 100 in that inning as well.
In the 1979 World Cup final at Lord's, Richards made 138 not out from 157 balls, the first in a long list of match-winning one-day international knocks.
I umpired, of course, 3 World Cup finals that he played in, and tremendous one-day cricketer, marvellous. He just changed the game completely. Once he got in, he just changed the game. You couldn't bowl at him. Wherever you bowl at him, he murdered you.
I've battled with deciding who the greatest batsman I've seen is, and Viv Richards, Barry Richards, Sachin Tendulkar, Gary Sobers, Graham Pollock, Sunil Gavaskar, these are the guys in the frame. And I've come to the conclusion that it's Viv, because he did it when it mattered so often it almost defies belief. I mean, his record in cup finals for his country and for his county are staggering. I mean, he turned it on. So that 79 World Cup final, the chance for the West Indies to cement what everybody thought anyway, really, that they were not only the best, becoming the best test team in the world, but the best one-day team as well, was there. It wasn't his most dazzling performance, but it showed the other side to him, that Viv could play when it mattered.
There was no contest with that one. That is a big 6.
Viv Richards, he's probably my favourite cricketer. In a one-day game at the MCG, we had an attack that included Lilly, Thompson, I think Jeff Dimmitt was playing, Rodney Hogg. Pretty formidable pace attack, and Viv made 150 in this one-day innings, and he just bludgeoned it and smashed it and whacked it to all parts of the MCG. And you can imagine in a one-day game, he basically got the field pretty much spread when he's on strike, and he still managed to hit boundary after boundary after boundary. And at the time, I never thought anyone would bat better than that.
In 1981, Test cricket came to Antigua, Richards' home island. He had married 3 days earlier, a major event for the island. Anything less than a century now would be an anticlimax.
In 1981, Antigua was awarded a test match, the final test of the series against England. And Richards actually got married just before that test, and of course that was a very major event on the island. And then he came out in the test match, and set about scoring a test century there. And he took much longer than he normally would over a test century, but it was as if he set himself that the whole event wouldn't be complete unless he was able to score 100, which he surely did.
By 1985, Richards had taken over from Clive Lloyd as West Indian captain. He would lead the team for 6 years and would never lose a series.
In the dressing room, Viv always was looking for a way to win a cricket match, and always trying to G the guys up. Even after he got out, he would go around the dressing room and say, listen, we have to win this game. You know, try and do this, try and do that, whatever the situation it was. On the cricket field, always coming to the bowlers, having a word with bowlers. He was so competitive. That is why when he took over the captaincy, sometimes people thought he was a bit hard on his players, and he was. But that was because he was so competitive. He always wanted to win, always wanted to make sure the West Indies were winners.
Richards led his team to a 5-0 thrashing of England at home in 1986. He finished the series with a century and 56 balls, the fastest ever Test century, as measured by the number of balls faced.
And he's gone and got that century with a mighty 6 down to mid-wicket. Typical Vivian Richards stuff.
The records kept falling. In a one-day international against New Zealand in 1987, Richards became the only player to make a century and take 5 wickets in a one-day international.
And there is 5 wickets for Vivian Richards. What a day it's been for the West Indies captain.
Richards continued in international cricket until 1991, and in county cricket until 1993. He was later knighted, the first Antiguan to receive a knighthood for services to cricket.
When Viv played for the West Indies, Viv just did not believe in losing. He just thought that, you know, he had to do and give everything for the West Indies. And of course he had the skill to produce.
He came in to an outstanding West Indies team under Clive Lloyd, and he had Gordon Greenidge and Desmond Haynes opening the batting in front of him and others around him. But he was the key. He was the hub around which the batting revolved during his career, and during that long period when West Indies dominated international cricket.
He was, you know, he was a great inspiration to all, young and old, and he gave 120%, 130%. He just gave his all every time he went out there. I remember him taking it. He had a sort of back problem in Trinidad, and the doctor gave him some cortisone and so on. He could hardly walk. And he went out. He took the injection, went out and bat. And that's how much he loved West Indies cricket, and he loved this game of ours. So, you know, he was just a great ambassador for the sport.
Many great batsmen have seemed like ordinary men until they took guard and began to ply their trade. Richards was different. He had an aura, a swagger that made it clear he was special, even as he sauntered to the crease.
He was the man, and he had that. He was known as Smoking Joe Frazier because of his similarity in build to the former heavyweight boxer, even from a young age when he first came into the team. And that's the kind of dominance that he had. That was the kind of attitude of a heavyweight boxer, that I'm coming to get you. No matter what happens, I don't mind how fast you are, how much you spin the ball, no matter what kind of conditions they are, I'm coming to get you. When he walked out, you had a feeling, a presence was there when Richards went out, and usually he converted.
When Viv arrived at the crease, he looked 6 inches taller than he was. He looked 6 inches wider than he was. He had this strong presence in his face, the Roman nose, the brilliant bones. There was an emperor-like feel about Viv, and still is, actually.
Vivian Richards walked to the crease, and there was this presence. And if you set him a challenge, if you set a certain field, he would take you on. And that's what made him so special. You would set a certain field, and he would still play the shot. And he felt that he was good enough to get it through anyway. Occasionally it brought him undone. There was that presence that was very, very special.
Sir Vivian Richards played in 121 test matches. He made 8,540 runs at an average of 50.23, including 24 centuries. In one-day internationals, he made 6,721 runs at an average of 47, with 11 centuries, and 118 wickets at an average of 35.83.
If Viv was the type of batsman that cared about records, he would hold every record in Test cricket. But Viv was out there trying to entertain the public and also trying to win for the West Indies. He would get bored after a while. Viv was never one to go out and just bat and bat and bat and bat. He would get 100, perhaps go on and get a big 100, but he was not one to sit down and think, oh, the world record is 365, I'm going to get 366. Because I'm absolutely sure if he sat down every time he went out to bat and thought that he would get it eventually. But he was a great player.
Viv Richards made batting look so simple. Viv Richards was somebody who, when he went out to bat, you knew that you would be entertained. He would play his shots no matter what the position of his team, and he was explosive. It was unbelievable.
His record speaks for himself. It was great to have him in the side because you knew you had somebody there who, regardless of the situation, could bring you back into the game.
He was so important, I think, for my career, and I'd like to think I was for his to a degree. Even when I was captain of England in the West Indies and we had all kinds of problems, he would take the time out to come and see me and sit me down and make sure it was all right and anything he could do. And also, best player, in my opinion, that's ever lived.
Sir Vivian Richards, like Grace, almost a century earlier, had a unique and commanding presence on the cricket field. For this and for his ability to produce astonishingly powerful innings and demoralize the finest bowling attacks, Sir Vivian Richards ranks among the top 3 of ESPN's Legends of Cricket.